who said that.
Marina Walker. Yeah, one of the heads of the ICIJ.
Your most surprising interview for the film?
I love talking to people and, especially super intelligent, interesting people. I'd say, Jack Blum, the IRS investigator, and he's a very, very highly regarded lawyer, was very revealing. It was one of the interviews I did early on. And, oftentimes these types of films are like investigations themselves. And there's a lot of our discussion that isn't in the finished film, but it was very, very illuminating and powerful because Jack has been around and dealt with these cases long before the Panama Papers story broke. And what I liked about my interview with Jack was that it really showed me, a lot of times it can seem to the public that these things just kind of pop out of thin air. In talking to Jack, it's really evidence that, there have been really dogged people, brave people who have been trying to get the public to understand for decades how they're being robbed and how the middle class is being destroyed and how, the working and lower classes are being kept poor. The systemic problem that, I became aware of because of the Panama Papers has been going on for a long time. And I don't mean, it's human nature. It's been going on for as long as there's been human civilization. But the specific economic construct that we have, has been going on for a long time. Talking to Jack was we all walked away so blown away by the gravity and breadth of the corruption. Probably the most emotional interview I did personally was with Rita Vasquez in Panama. And I was saying it wasn't emotional for her, I don't think, because she's a tough cookie. But it was just really evidence to me. It's one thing for all these European and American, and other global journalists to expose this wrongdoing. And it took a huge amount of courage. Obviously for people in Russia, China, places where you can get killed, huge. But Rita was really uniquely vulnerable for two reasons, because she was having to expose corruption within her very own home and backyard where she had to earn a living and face everyone every day in a very small country where everyone knows each other,
right?
Including people that she knew. Because as I said, this is a type of corruption. A lot of people say, well, they do it, why can't I do it? And, so good people have been implicated in this because
a lot of it is legal. It's on the edge of legality.
Well, yeah, some of it is legal the way slavery was legal. It's just it's wildly unethical, but they have bent the laws to make it legal. So just oftentimes what gets misunderstood, because just because something is not illegal doesn't make it right. Slavery was legal. It wasn't right. But the other major thing that I think Rita had to face was, I would say a kind of faint bigotry on the part of a lot of other people, probably even including some of her journalistic colleagues who sort of looked at Panama in general as this
backwater.
And dismissed it and had also kind of dumped the whole essence of the corruption at the doorstep of Panama, when of course this isn't a story about Panamanian corruption. It's a story about global corruption. The Panama Papers was named that because it sounded good, I'm sure, but because the law firm was based in Panama, but their offices were all over the world, including the U.S. I felt that someone like Rita really had to deal with kind of a constellation of prejudice. That interview was very powerful to me for that reason, because I just felt she really just kind of barreled ahead and just took on what she had to take on regardless of that.
Is there anything that you got on film that you couldn't include that you regret?
There's a lot of stuff that I got on film that I couldn't include that I don't regret because it would have put people in danger.
Did you start interviewing people right after the papers came out?
No, I started after the papers came out.
Was this like a 2-year process or?
Yeah, it was a 1.5 year long, 2-year long process, basically end to end.
So people were more comfortable with being known as being part of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nobody would have talked to me before publication. There's no way.
No, of course, no. But there were some shots of things that I thought, how did he get this footage? Somebody was filming this inside the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I love Laura. Do you say
Poitras
films too?
Yeah.
Risk was at the Take Two Documentary Festival last year, and
yeah, I loved it. I love Risk.
Citizen 4. She must It must be amazing to get together and work on a project with her company.
Yeah, I mean, I actually came to Laura with this because I'd worked on 2 short films for her organization, Field of Vision, and really enjoyed the process of working with her and Charlotte Cook from Field of Vision. So I just felt that it would be very helpful to the film to have her oversight, which it was, obviously.
Your subject matter seems to be a lot about secrecy and anonymity. They seem always to be about things just under the radar. And
I'm interested in the shift of society from, into a landscape where privacy is not considered a right anymore, and that we are giving up that right, and what the implications of that are, because they're overlooked. A giant breach, of your health insurer or your photographs, or you realize that Facebook is data mining you, then people start to freak out. But that's so late. Like, that's by then it's already too late. So, I'm interested in that, and I'm also very interested in stories because we have, and it's not conspiratorial. Culture tends to define what stories it does and does not want predominantly told. There's a reason why the New York Times and the Washington Post and other big papers didn't, rejected the Panama Papers leak when it came to them, and only picked the story up, I would say quasi begrudgingly after it was broken by the other journalists. There are just narratives that are not usually given free rein to be discussed, and those are often narratives that I'm interested in exploring.
oh, have you arrived?
No, I'm here. I'm good. Yeah, I just closed my car door too. I was always interested in counter narrative. I was interested in that when I was young. I was interested in that when I was in film school.
Hey, you have another documentary that you just had a press screening for simultaneously,
Yes.
sort of? What's that?
I made another tech doc, sort of my third tech doc, about new technology, the information age, global internet-based communities. So it's about cryptocurrency and blockchain. Yeah, that's Trust Machine. Yep. Yeah, that's not viewable yet, but it will be. We're going to do a small theatrical in New York and LA, and then it'll come out wide.
Oh, this was so nice to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
What was the freeway you were just driving?
The 10, west to the west side.
How is it in LA these days?
It's great. I love it. I actually love it here. It's taken me 30 years to love LA, but I genuinely do now. So thanks. It was really great to talk to you.
Yeah, I love the movie. I told people I was writing an article about something called the Panama Papers. Educated people in my writing group, like 3 of them said, "What's that?"
Well, that's why we made the movie. That's got to change.
Yeah, it's got to change. Okay, Alex, I'll let you go.
Awesome. Thanks, Kara.
Okay, bye. To Dust is a darkly comic first feature film directed by Shawn Snyder and produced by husband and wife team Alessandro Nivola, who has recently starred in Disobedience, and his wife Emily Mortimer, a star of the Newsroom and Doll and M. These are longtime Amagansett locals and well-loved actors. In To Dust, Geza Rohri plays a Hasidic cantor having trouble coping with the death of his wife. Searching for relief from gruesome nightmares about his wife's decaying body, he finds a community biology professor, Matthew Broderick, somehow willing to teach him more about the process. To Dust is category-defying and all the more rich for it. Besides being a comedy and drama, it is also partly a horror film, a buddy film, a road picture, and at moments a Howard Hawks-esque slapstick. And yet somehow it manages to be low-key and a profound and moving examination of grief from multiple perspectives. So I wanted to talk to you about To Dust, which I actually was able to see.
Oh, good. You saw. Cool. How did you see it?
Oh, I saw it because I told Hiff that
Oh, cool. So they just send you a link or something. Excellent.
Yeah, it's such a sweet, beautiful film.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad you dug it.
I really liked it. But I was interested in the idea that you and Emily produced it, and if you wanted to talk about what kind of producing, there's so many levels of it, but how involved you were.
Yeah, we were as involved as anyone could possibly be, to the point where we had the cinematographer living in my mom's apartment, and we're driving him to Staten Island at 5 a.m. every day over the Verrazano Bridge. But
That's great.
we started this company called King Bee about 5 years ago, or maybe 6, in order initially just to produce Doll and M, which was the television show that M wrote and starred in for HBO with her best friend Dolly Wells.
And I have to watch that.
You've got to see it. It's really, really great. And it was kind of pioneering in a way. It was a germ of an idea that they had, and we started talking to our friend Azazel Jacobs about it, who's a great indie filmmaker. Initially, we were gonna make an indie film, and we got together in Los Angeles while Emily was shooting the Newsroom, which was also for HBO, and just with no money at all, just shot like 20 minutes of footage that was improvised, just based on this idea of two best friends, one who's a movie star and the other one who's down on her luck. And the movie star hires her best friend to be her personal assistant. And
I remember this idea. I think you were talking about it way, way back when.
Yeah, it was a long, first we were talking about it maybe being a play and then a movie. But so Uzzah came over and just shot on a Canon 5D, not even a film camera really, this sort of 20 minutes, and edited it together. There were no lights, no makeup, nothing, and cut it together just as a kind of promo that I was going to raise money with. It just was so good that it felt like an episode of a television show instead of a movie. And we just decided, hell, let's just see what happens if we, Em and Dolly were over in England and over the summer, and we sent it to the person who had produced, the broadcast executive who had been behind Michael Winterbottom's The Trip, that starred Steve Coogan, which was kind of the inspiration for the show in terms of Steve Coogan playing a version of himself and his friend playing a version of himself, and kind of riffing on their real life personalities, but not really, and having it be kind of exaggerated and hilarious. And so we brought it to the woman who had made that show at the BBC, and she was now working at B Sky B. She watched this 20 minutes and just loved it and said, we want to commission the whole thing, and not only that, we want this to be the pilot episode and you shouldn't change a thing.
Wow.
And so that's how it started. And so we put this company together. I had never produced anything at the time. I produced it. We then made 2 seasons and sold it to HBO, and it was just this great success for us, having never done anything like that, and not really knowing our ass from our elbows as far as how to go about it. And we just learned.
Isn't that the way to do things, though? Because if you knew initially how hard they would be, you would say, oh, well, this is impossible.
Definitely would never have gone anywhere near anything like this. But yeah, it was just bullshitting a lot, pretending to sound like I knew what I was talking about, having no idea. And then by the end of the second season, I actually really did know what I was talking about, sometimes learning the hard way, but I had definitely gotten a lot of experience from it. And at that point, we decided, hey, I think that it would be a good idea to grow this company out a little bit and get a little bit more ambitious and start trying to develop more than one thing at once.
Didn't you tell me at one time that you and Emily switch off projects so that you're both not gone at the same time working and